Some battles don't happen on distant battlefields. They erupt on quiet streets right here in America. A black woman, her uniform decorated with 3 stars, once led soldiers into combat and sat across from world leaders. But on this day, she was handcuffed on the very land she had promised to protect. Not for committing a crime, but simply because of the color of her skin. With just one phone call, everything changed. The system had no choice but to answer. If you believe justice must be spoken out loud, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Because today's story is quiet, powerful, and impossible to ignore. General Maya Jefferson, a respected officer in the United States Army, sat calmly in her matte black Jeep Grand Cherokee. She had just pulled off Highway 94. Her military-grade GPS needed to be reset due to recent road construction near Fort Mitchell. Even though she had been stationed there many times before, even experienced leaders lose their way when the land keeps changing. Suddenly, red and blue lights lit up her rearview mirror. The sound of traffic faded as Maya took a deep breath. Not out of fear, not even out of anger. But with that deep, worn-out sigh, many black Americans know all too well, the kind of sigh that quietly says, "Not again." She rolled down the window and placed both hands carefully on the steering wheel at 10 and 2. Every movement was slow, controlled, and exact. She'd done this before. "Hands where I can see them," came a sharp voice filled with authority. Officer Troy Beckett approached the vehicle. One hand was on his belt, the other hovered near his gun. His voice made it clear, to him, she wasn't a general. She wasn't even a woman with a name, just someone suspicious in a dark SUV. Maya tapped her fingers gently on the steering wheel, an old combat trick to stay calm. She didn't look at him right away. She didn't need to. She already knew what this was. "License and registration," he snapped. "Reaching now," Maya said, calm and steady. She slowly opened the glove box, never taking her eyes off her hands. Every move was careful and practiced. She handed him the documents. "My registration is current. I pulled over to reset my GPS. That's not illegal," she explained. Beckett didn't even look at the paperwork. Instead, he stepped back and touched the release on his holster. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered. Maya turned her head slightly. "Am I under arrest, officer?" Across the road, someone in a gray car began recording the scene. Another car slowed. Someone shouted, "She didn't do anything!" But Beckett didn't react. His badge gave him a false sense of control, and he wasn't going to give it up. Not even to a woman who had worn her uniform longer than he had worn that badge. Maya unbuckled her seatbelt and stepped out of the car. Smooth, confident, just like walking into a mission briefing. She stood tall. Her back was straight. Her eyes were clear. "You have any weapons on you?" Beckett asked, circling her like a predator unsure of what it had found. "No, officer," she said. "I'm active duty. My weapons are secured on base." "Oh, so you're military?" he sneered. "What are you, a mechanic or something?" Maya didn't respond. She didn't have to. Her silence spoke louder than any title he could try to insult. But her silence wasn't enough for Beckett. "You know what? Hands behind your back." And just like that, she was cuffed, pressed against the hood of her own Jeep. The metal was cold. The pavement was hot. Her wrists were hurt, not just by the cuffs, but by the centuries of pain they represented. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She just breathed, slowly, steadily. Because Maya Jefferson knew what real power looked like. And this was just a poor imitation of it. Officer Beckett kept circling her like he was looking for a reason, something to match the story he'd already decided in his head. "You've got heavily tinted windows," he said, tapping the glass with his flashlight. "That's illegal." "It's legal for military vehicles registered on base," Maya replied calmly. "I have the papers if you'd like to see them." "I didn't ask for a lecture," Beckett interrupted harshly. Step back. There it was again. Not General, not Jefferson, just ma'am, said in a way that stripped her of any respect. A word full of contempt. She shifted slightly, careful not to make him feel threatened. Officer, I believe we've gone beyond a normal traffic stop. I'd like to make a phone call. Oh, you'll be making a phone call, Beckett mocked, at the station. Then, without another word, he grabbed her arm, pulled her close, and tightened the cuffs. The steel dug deeper into her skin. His knee pushed into her back as he leaned her onto the hood of her Jeep. The sun was blazing. Cars kept driving. A phone camera zoomed in. Voices started shouting again. She didn't do anything. Let her go. But Beckett didn't hear, or maybe he just didn't care. To him, she wasn't a general. She wasn't a veteran. She wasn't even a citizen. She was a target. And that was his mistake. Because while Maya Jefferson's body stayed still, her mind was already at work, remembering the right words, the right number, the exact code for the phone call that would shatter Officer Beckett's fantasy. But she didn't say anything yet. She let him enjoy his illusion. Because when true power shows up, it doesn't knock. It arrives like a storm. The cuffs were tight, but Maya Jefferson didn't flinch. She stood tall, even as Officer Beckett pushed her into the back seat of his cruiser like she was just another criminal. The sun hit the stars on her uniform, stars he still refused to see. The crowd got louder. Phones were raised higher. The mood had changed. Something was coming, but Beckett didn't feel it. He was too focused on what he was doing. "Uncooperative suspect," he said into his radio. "Claims to be military. Probably lying. I'm bringing her in." Across the highway, Captain Marcus Wells stepped out of his car. His hand was steady. His army badge hung around his neck, shining in the Georgia sun. He had been watching the whole time. He didn't know the woman's name at first, but he knew the stance, the discipline, the quiet strength of someone who had been through worse than a traffic stop. Now he knew exactly who she was. He walked across the road without hesitation. "Officer," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. "Captain Marcus Wells, U.S. Army, I'm asking you to stop this arrest immediately." Beckett turned and squinted. "Who the hell are you?" "I just told you," Marcus replied. "And that woman is General Maya Jefferson. She outranks everyone in this county, including your sheriff." Beckett froze. He looked from Marcus to Maya and back again. "Doesn't matter," he muttered, gripping Maya's arm tighter. "Nobody's above the law." "And neither are you," Marcus said, steady and clear. Maya stood tall. The pain in her wrists didn't matter. Her eyes met Beckett's, clear, sharp, and steady. "This is the real world, officer," she said, her voice cool like steel. "And it's about to meet the part you thought couldn't touch you." Just then, a low thud-thud sound began to fill the air. The crowd looked up. Beckett turned toward the sky. The sound grew louder. Because when true power answers a call, it doesn't walk. It comes from above. A helicopter appeared above the trees like a heavy shadow. Its dull gray body had no labels or signs, just raw power shaped into metal. Civilians stepped back, shielding their faces from the strong wind. Beckett's hand dropped from Maya's arm as the rotors kicked up dust. He took a step back, eyes wide, breath caught. Down the road, a black government SUV sliced through traffic. It stopped behind the crowd. The door opened before the engine even turned off. Out stepped a woman in a navy blue suit. Her silver hair was tied in a tight bun. Her heels clicked like a judge's gavel. Colonel Evelyn Rudeday didn't walk. She marched. "Which one of you caused this nonsense?" she asked. Her voice was calm, but sharp enough to cut through stone. Beckett cleared his throat, already pale. "She was uncooperative, maybe pretending to be—" "Stop talking," Evelyn said, raising one hand like a command. She turned to Maya without pause. "General, are you all right?" Maya nodded slightly. She had been waiting for logic to arrive. Evelyn reached into her pocket and pulled out a key. She unlocked the handcuffs herself. The click of the metal opening was louder than the helicopter. Behind her, Captain Marcus Wells let out a quiet breath. Beckett stood frozen. "You arrested a 3-star general without checking her ID," Evelyn said. "You ignored her rank, broke federal rules, and arrested an active military officer without cause. Do you even understand how serious this is?" Beckett opened his mouth, but she stopped him again. "Every word you say now just makes it worse." Around them, phones kept recording. Dash cams, body cams, even a drone overhead. There was no hiding from the truth. Maya adjusted her sleeves. Her wrists were red, but her posture was steady. "You see," she said, looking directly at Beckett, "your job is to protect, not to assume, not to threaten, and definitely not to humiliate someone just because they don't look like the kind of leader you expect." Beckett stayed silent. He couldn't say anything. There were no words that could undo what he had done. Maya didn't look back as she walked toward her Jeep. She didn't need to. Now everyone knew her name. The next morning, the incident wasn't just a roadside problem anymore. It was national news. Videos of General Maya Cole handcuffed like a suspect had gone viral. Social media was filled with shock, anger, and one question repeated everywhere. How does this still happen? Inside the Internal Affairs Office of the Kingsford Police Department, Officer Brent Beckett sat stiffly in a chair that suddenly felt too small. The room was plain, buzzing with the hum of fluorescent lights. The file on the table looked like it weighed 100 pounds. It held everything: screenshots, times, witness reports, and the truth. Deputy Chief Alan Breyer sat across from him, silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, but every word hit like a hammer. "Do you know who General Maya Cole is?" Beckett swallowed. "Now I do," he said quietly. "She's not just a general," Breyer said. "She's a legend. The first black woman to lead an airborne division. She has more stars on her uniform than you have years on this job." Beckett opened his mouth, then closed it. "Did she resist arrest?" Breyer continued. "Did she threaten you? Did she disobey?" "No, sir." "Then why did you escalate?" Breyer leaned forward, his voice sharper. "Why the handcuffs? Why the knee in her back? Why the power trip?" Beckett looked down at his hands. "She didn't give me her name at first. She seemed disrespectful." "Disrespectful?" Breyer repeated in disbelief. She was calm. "You felt threatened by how calm she was. That's not being dismissive. That's showing dignity." He stood up and began walking slowly behind his chair. "You've embarrassed this department. You've embarrassed this city. And you've given fuel to every protester who's ever said we target people who don't look like us." "I didn't do it because she's black," Beckett said quickly. "But she is black," Breyer replied sharply, turning back to him. "And you did do it. Whether you accept it or not, that's what the entire country sees now, and that's what we have to deal with." Beckett had nothing left to say, because nothing he could say would change what had already started. Across town, General Maya Cole sat barefoot in her brother's living room. A mug of tea was getting cold beside her. Her uniform jacket was folded neatly over the couch armrest. The adrenaline had faded, but she still sat upright. Her mind was still in work mode. Elijah, her brother, sat across from her. He held a notepad, his glasses slipping down his nose, the same ones he always claimed he didn't need. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked. "Once it's out there, you can't take it back." Maya didn't answer right away. She was watching the video again. Her own voice stayed calm under pressure. Beckett's hand gripped her arm. Marcus walked into the frame like a knife cutting through fog. She had lived it, but watching it felt even heavier. "It's already out there," she said softly. "I didn't choose to be the story, but I won't let them finish it without me." Elijah nodded. "The press wants a statement, someone to speak, an interview. You could be on every major news network by noon." "I don't want attention," Maya said. "I want awareness." He looked at her carefully, then leaned forward. "Then speak. Tell them what it means to wear the uniform and still be treated like a threat. Tell them what dignity looks like when it's forced against a car hood." Maya exhaled slowly, trying to stay grounded. "I don't want to make this about me." "But it is about you," Elijah said firmly, "because they didn't stop a stranger. They stopped a black woman in uniform. And if you don't speak, who will speak for those who don't have stars on their shoulders?" The doorbell rang. Maya stood up, moving with control. When she opened the door, Captain Marcus was there, holding his hat. "I wasn't sure if I should come," he said. "You're welcome here," Maya replied. He stepped inside, looking around at the awards and photos. Smiles frozen in time from battlefields most Americans couldn't even name. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said quietly, "for how you handled it, for showing us what real strength looks like." Maya gave him a tired but sincere smile. "It's not about strength," she said. "It's about choice. And I chose not to give them what they expected." Marcus nodded. "You changed something that day. That video, what you said, it's going to stay. And this time the hero won't disappear before the final act." Maya's phone buzzed on the table. A message from Colonel Rhodes. "Request, private briefing, National Awareness Initiative. Are you ready?" She stared at the screen for a long second, then tapped the message open. "Yes," she whispered. "I'm ready." The next day, the south entrance of the Pentagon was surrounded by press vans, security barriers, and a crowd that stretched down the street. Some people held signs that said, "We stand with General Cole." Others just held their breath and waited. There were no leaked statements, no interviews, only one official notice. "General Maya Cole will speak to the public at 2 p.m. No questions will be taken." Inside the press room, the tension was thick. Journalists whispered. Camera lenses were adjusted. Microphones were tested again and again. Even the air conditioner seemed to hum with anticipation. And then, right on time, she walked in. No entourage, no drama, just a woman in uniform. Her boots were polished. Her chest carried medals earned in places many Americans would never see. She walked to the microphone. She paused and looked directly at the people in the front row. Then she spoke. "My name is Maya Cole. I am a daughter, a sister, a soldier. I have served this country for 27 years. I have led troops through combat. I have helped make peace where it seemed impossible. I have stood at too many memorials with families who never got to say goodbye." She paused. The room went silent. "And yet last week, I was forced to press my face against the hood of my own car because someone saw my skin before they saw my rank. Because someone saw me as a threat, not a protector. Because someone thought their fear mattered more than my service." Her voice never got louder, but every word felt heavy with truth. "I am not here to shame a man. I am here to expose a system where assumptions come faster than facts, where suspicion is automatic, where dignity is treated like a luxury, not a basic right." The silence in the room was deafening. "I will not beg for justice. I will expect it. Not just for those of us in uniform, but for millions who never get the benefit of the doubt. People who are seen as not belonging, simply because of how they look." She stepped away from the microphone. There was no applause, no camera flashes, just quiet respect. Outside, the crowd didn't cheer. They chanted. Soft, steady, strong. "General Cole." General Cole Maya walked down the hallway alone. Her heels clicked like a clock ticking toward change. At the end of the hall, Colonel Rhodes stood waiting. "That," she said, "was the sound of a nation finally paying attention." Maya replied, "Now we make them see." That same evening, Officer Brent Mallory sat in a windowless room at the Kingsford Police Department. A sealed envelope lay in front of him. Inside was his termination notice. Effective immediately. No ceremony, no second chances, just 5 printed lines ending his career. He didn't turn on the TV. He didn't check his phone. He already knew the story was everywhere. Her name, her face, the video, the shame. He had thought about writing a statement, maybe even an apology. But what could he say that he didn't already understand? That it wasn't about race? But it always had been. Not in loud ways, but in quiet assumptions, in quick judgments, in control disguised as procedure. He had handcuffed a 3-star general on the side of the road, not because of what she had done, but because she didn't look like the power he had been taught to respect. Across town, Captain Marcus Wells stood outside Fort Mitchell's chapel. He didn't pray, he just breathed, thought, and remembered how close it had come to being worse. Another name, another headline, another life taken by pride. He was grateful it hadn't ended that way, because one woman stayed calm, even when others tried to take her dignity. And now, the world was watching. Days later, Cassandra stood in a public school classroom in Southeast D.C. The room was full of curious 9th graders, black and brown kids who had seen her on the news. They knew her story. She didn't come to impress. She came to connect. "Weren't you scared?" one girl asked. "I was steady," Cassandra replied. "That's different. Fear is loud, but being steady, that speaks clearly." Another student leaned in. "But you outranked him. Why didn't you put him in his place?" She smiled gently. "Because rank doesn't stop bullets, and power without control is just noise." The students nodded slowly. Their silence said more than applause. Then one by one they stood, not to cheer, not to clap, but to honor something they recognized, strength that didn't shout, but stood firm. That same week, Congress passed the Ellison Protocols, new national laws for police de-escalation, military ID checks, and racial bias training. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. Back home, Cassandra walked barefoot into her living room. Her father's folded flag sat on a shelf. He had fought in Vietnam, only to return to a country that never saw his worth. She looked at his picture, then out the window at the darkening sky. She had fought many battles overseas, but this one, the fight for dignity and truth, felt different, because this time she was fighting for home, and home was finally listening. Cassandra didn't return to Kingsford. She didn't need to. Her presence was already a part of its history, not through anger, but through undeniable truth. She kept working from Washington, mentoring young officers, speaking at military bases, and quietly helping change the rules that once tried to silence her. Some called her a hero, others called her a catalyst. But Cassandra never chased titles. She simply showed up, calm, composed, and determined, until the system had no choice but to listen. She knew the work wasn't finished. Racism doesn't disappear with headlines. Bias doesn't vanish with laws. But each step forward makes the path easier for those who follow. One evening, standing on her balcony as the sun set behind the city, Cassandra whispered words her father once told her. "You don't fight to be seen. You fight so others don't have to." And as the wind moved across her shoulders like a quiet salute, she knew this battle might be over. But the mission continues. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in truth, in dignity, and in the hope that next time, no one will have to stand alone. Through this story, we learn a powerful lesson. Dignity is not something you're given. It's something you claim. Justice doesn't come quietly. It needs someone brave enough to speak up, even with a shaking voice. Cassandra didn't yell. She held up a mirror. And in that mirror, the nation had to look at itself. So now ask yourself, if you were in her place, what would you have done? Would you stay calm or fight back? Would you trust the system or challenge it? What would your silence cost you? And what could your courage inspire? We invite you to reflect and leave a comment below. In your heart, do you believe that by 2050, racism in law enforcement will be gone? Or are we just beginning a long road toward true change? The answer doesn't lie in the future. It lies in what we choose to do today. This story is fictional and created to raise awareness. It highlights the importance of justice, responsibility, and treating everyone with respect and dignity. We strongly oppose violence, prejudice, and injustice in all forms. Viewer discretion is advised.